London, it's just this global giant, right? But its journey to the top wasn't about paving streets with gold. Nope. It was all carved out by a river. And let me tell you, that river is holding on to some pretty dark secrets. I mean, you really can't tell the story of London without talking about its secret ingredient, the mighty River Thames. For centuries, it was the city's lifeblood, sure, but it's also kind of like a vault, holding the keys to a dramatic and sometimes violent past. So for this explainer, we're going to do something pretty incredible. We're going to use a ton of archaeological data to digitally drain the Thames. Yep, we're pulling the plug to see what's really down there. The shipwrecks and structures that tell the story of London's meteoric rise. All right, our first case file takes us way, way back. Almost 2,000 years, actually, to a time before London was even London. We're on the hunt for the city's origin story, the blueprint laid down by the Roman Empire. So the Romans had a settlement they called Londinium. But here's the thing, we don't have any surviving documents that tell us exactly when or how they built it. So what do? The only way to find out is to literally dig for clues in the mud. What did those Roman engineers actually leave behind for us? Okay, so fast forward to a modern construction project. Workers are digging, and bam, they hit these absolutely massive wooden timbers. Now, what's super interesting is how archaeologists figured out just how old they were. This timeline shows a really dramatic period for Roman Britain, but how could they possibly pinpoint when this exact piece of wood was from? Well, they use this amazing technique called dendrochronology. It's basically like fingerprinting for trees, matching the ring patterns to a master timeline. And the results? They were just stunning. The trees were cut down around 85 AD. That puts them at the exact moment the Romans were rebuilding London with a vengeance, right after the fierce warrior Queen Boudicca had burned the whole place to the ground. And this wasn't just some random building. As they excavated the whole site, the puzzle pieces started to fit together. These timbers were part of a huge quayside for the city's very first major port, complete with stone warehouses. And right nearby, they found the base of a massive pier, the foundation for the first permanent bridge ever built across the Thames. You have to understand, this piece of engineering wasn't just impressive, it was a total game changer. This one bridge and port basically cemented London's spot as the capital of Roman Britain. And get this, it was built so well that it stayed the city's only bridge for almost 1,000 years. That's just incredible. Okay, let's hit the fast forward button. We're jumping 1,400 years into the future for our next case file. We're diving into the swashbuckling era of Queen Elizabeth I. And down in the mud, a mysterious shipwreck reveals a much darker, much more violent source of London's growing wealth. So archaeologists find this wreck of a 16th century merchant ship. It's loaded up with valuable stuff like tin and lead, but it was also armed to the teeth with cannons, which, raises a pretty big question. Why on earth would a simple trading ship need that much firepower? Well, the answer all comes down to a really important distinction. See, this ship wasn't a pirate ship in the way we usually think of it. It was a privateer. What does that mean? It means it was basically a part-time government-approved pirate ship sent out by the Queen herself to go attack and plunder treasure from England's enemies, especially the Spanish. And this number right here, it shows you just how insanely profitable this, let's call it violent trade, really was. On just one trip, the famous privateer Sir Francis Drake delivered a 4,700% return on investment to his backers, and that included the Queen. This state-sponsored piracy was funneling what would be billions of dollars today straight into London, bankrolling its explosive growth. But you know how it goes, this golden age of looting couldn't last forever. As London got richer, it also became a much bigger target for its enemies. The whole privateering gig was winding down, and England realized it needed a professional, full-time military force to protect all that treasure. And that brings us right to our third case file. The shattered remains of a 17th century warship tell the story of a total catastrophe, one that forced a radical change and gave birth to the modern Royal Navy that would one day rule the seas. Okay, the year is 1665. A massive warship, aptly named the London, is getting ready to go fight the Dutch. But before it even leaves the estuary, disaster strikes. A fire breaks out somewhere down below deck. It spreads like, well, wildfire. until it reaches the ship's magazine, igniting 12 tons of gunpowder. The ship was just vaporized in an instant. The explosion was so shocking that the famous diarist Samuel Pepys, who was actually a top Navy administrator, wrote about it. His words just capture the absolute horror of the moment. He noted that out of hundreds of people on board, only about 24 survived, literally blown clear of the blast. But out of this absolute tragedy came a really critical evolution. The loss of the London was a brutal, brutal lesson. It basically forced the Navy to get its act together, to standardize procedures, improve safety, and create a professional officer corps so something like this would never, ever happen again. This horrible moment was really the fiery birth of the modern Royal Navy. All right, for our final case file, we're taking another huge leap forward, this time to World War II. We're going to investigate a wreck that isn't just a piece of history. It's a ghost from the past that poses a very real and very, very explosive threat to London even today.
So if you look just off the coast, you can see these three masts sticking out of the water. They belong to a sunken ship, the SS Richard Montgomery. The whole area is a strict no-go zone, watched 24/7 by CCTV. So the big question is, why is this 80-year-old wreck treated with such extreme caution?
And here is why. The Richard Montgomery was an American Liberty ship bringing weapons to Europe in 1944, but it ran aground in a storm and just broke in half. And what's still inside its hold? Well, it's absolutely staggering. We're talking 1,400 tons of high explosives. You see, these Liberty ships were built fast and cheap for the war. They had a known design flaw that made their hulls brittle. So after 80 years sitting in salt water, the Montgomery's hull is just decaying, and the whole ship is slowly collapsing under its own massive weight. And this all leads to the terrifying billion-dollar question. Could a piece of the collapsing hull be enough to set off those unstable 80-year-old bombs? The honest and pretty scary answer is experts just aren't sure. But the potential is there for what could be the largest non-nuclear peacetime explosion in history. Just think about that. So, as we've seen by digitally draining the Thames, each of these discoveries tells a crucial part of London's story. The Romans gave the city its start. State-sponsored pirates funded its rise to fortune. A naval disaster forged the very force that would protect it. And a ghost from a world war? Well, it remains its lingering danger. From a Roman bridge to a ticking time bomb, the river has been London's creator, its highway to unimaginable riches, and its hidden danger. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other secrets is it holding on to, just waiting for us to find?